I'm JJ Vines, and this is Jonathan McKinney.
Hello.
And you're watching another episode of Writing Advice with JJ and Jonathan. Today we're going to be talking about starting series and cliffhangers.
Okay.
Because, this is something that a lot of people do, and it's a mistake. It's something I started out trying to do, and it was a mistake.
Right.
If you are planning a series of books, a series of films, not so much a TV show, but books and films, and you want to make sure that you set up your first installment so that your audience will come back. So you end it on a cliffhanger.
Okay, so describe a cliffhanger.
Right. A cliffhanger is what you get to a point in your story and you don't wrap up your story, you just let it hang. So it goes off the end of a cliff and you say, to find out what happens next, to be continued, that kind of thing. If you do that with your main plot of your opening story, you are assuming, massively assuming, that your new audience that you've only just acquired because it's your first installment will come back. And they have no reason to, because you have not proven that you can tell a satisfying story yet. You've not done that. All you've done is tell them part of a story and then just been like, well, you paid for this opportunity to read part of a story. Without signing up to read part of a story, you signed up to read a story and I'm not going to give it to you.
Right.
You can do it with little bits. If you want people to come back, little threads that say more is to come. But your main story, your main unit of story should complete.
Okay, so we talk a lot about conflict. And that the story you're telling is probably and arguably should be structured around a line of conflict between, protagonist and antagonist, and that the conflict began when your story began and it ended when your story ended. It didn't end after your story ended, and I guess that's how we can define a cliffhanger in the sense of story structure in this way. So imagine you've got, let's take for an example, a movie, what's a good modern movie, but not a Marvel movie, just anything other than
a Marvel movie?
Yeah, recent with a good line of conflict, protagonist, antagonist.
Oh God, why can I not think of anything? All I have in my head now you said no Marvel movies, all I have in my head are Marvel movies.
Okay.
That's not helpful for you.
So, the only reason I wanted to avoid Marvel is because the last two big Marvel movies were Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh no, we watched the other night, we watched Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow. Okay, yeah.
Oh my God, it took me so long to think of a film.
So, Ichabod Crane, played by Johnny Depp, goes to the town of Sleepy Hollow to solve a
series of murders.
A murder case. Yeah, there's a serial killer, and he goes thinking it is a man of flesh and blood or whatever he says, and it turns out it's a headless horseman who was a crazy murderer some years ago. A cliffhanger, and this would have been awful. So the film ends with him discovering that the headless horseman was being controlled by the lady Van Castle or something.
Van Tassel.
Van Tassel. Yeah, tassels, not castles, 'cause it's America. So yeah, if you ended the film, say for example, with the headless horseman being summoned by the Lady Van Tassel to go and kill the elders of the town in the church when he walks around, and then said the end.
Yeah.
With Ichabod Crane leaving.
Yeah, to go to see
But then figuring out that it was, because he's leaving when that happens, and then he figures out and comes racing back. If you stopped there and said, come back next time, then no one would want to, because they'd be like, no, it's too long to wait for the end of this conflict to end.
If you wanted it to be a series, then you do it in a way, so for the most part, you wrap it up. You wrap up if we use...
So are we talking a series of books?
Yeah, talk a series of books rather than a series of films, because say for instance, okay,
It's go on.
I was going to say, so I'm reading Harry Potter at the minute to the kids. So, Harry Potter book 1, the main conflict, although it's a bit convoluted because it's over.
It's a bit convoluted because it's over a year.
Yeah, but the main
title, isn't it?
conflict is the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
It's who wants it, what does it do, everything like that, okay? If Harry ends that book, well, he does. He ends that book having found it and stopped Voldemort.
Yeah.
So that conflict, you can read that single unit of story and it makes sense. You have got an entire story that has been told. He finds out about the Philosopher's Stone, he stops Voldemort taking the Philosopher's Stone. Bam, done.
Mm-hmm.
But they also say that Voldemort will come back.
Yep.
That there are other people who work for Voldemort, that there are other people out there who want Voldemort to come back.
Right.
So that is left open to say, come back,
if,
because this is going to keep going. This is going to keep going.
If J.K. Rowling had ended with, Ron Weasley playing wizard chess and then Harry going into backwards face
Voldemort.
Then said, the end. That
Come back and see if he finds him, see if he stops him.
Then that wouldn't have been a resolution to the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
And as I say, when I first started trying to write Lily Prospero and the Magic Rabbit, which is my first book, the first few incarnations of it, before I'd sort of learned this information that we are now giving to you, when I was new and I hadn't studied and it was just a thing I wanted to do and I knew I had this story in me and I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I ended what is now my midpoint.
Right.
I wrote the entire first book and it was about the same length as the book as it is now, but my entire book built up to the climax being what is now the midpoint. Because I was like, well, that is a really good climax. It's a dramatic moment that makes a really good ending and says that I'm going to do more, because why has this happened? What are the consequences of it? And he was like, well, your audience aren't going to buy into that. You haven't written another book. You haven't got an opportunity to get it.
The conflict hasn't been resolved.
Exactly. So I, realised he was right. And, well, you were.
Okay.
No, you were. Don't worry, I have helped you in many ways too. But in this case, this was your knowledge that you gave to me. And as I say, we studied a lot. We got there.
We did.
But the point is, I realised that you were right. And that conflict, that particular conflict of Lily, because her power is that she can create life by accident at the beginning. Her drawings start coming to life and she discovers that she has this power suddenly. There is a reason, it's not just randomly suddenly, but she has this power now where things that she draws butterflies or animals, they spring forth from the page and they then exist. And so it's good. The midpoint, which changes the story, not completely, it's still one conflict, but it's we've talked I'll put the link to midpoints here. It reframed the conflict. So I thought that was a really good climax because it changes the story. But no, it was a really good midpoint because then I can complete that conflict, but leave it open at the end because
the world has grown around Lily.
Exactly.
So
Lily is now in a situation where she knows that there is power in the world. She knows she has this power. She knows this power is getting stronger. And she knows that there are people out there who are bad and have power, and there are people out there who are good and have power. So she is now at the end of her story. That conflict has been told, but she's ready to move on, which is when she goes off and has the second book, which is Mermaid's Curse. But I didn't realise this thing about cliffhangers.
And I think the reason is that while a lot of writers maybe grew up reading a lot, as we get older and there's less time, we just spend a lot more time watching television because there's so much of it. And so what television does, and oftentimes you'll have the two-part pilot, which your first episode ends
like Buffy.
Yeah, exactly. You end the first episode of the Lily Prospero TV show. If you've got a two-part pilot and your book is the pilot, the two parts, then you've got the reason why the first half of that story ends the way it does is because in your mind you're recreating a pilot.
Exactly.
And not writing a novel.
That is exactly it, because you're used to if you want to tell a series, you're probably used to watching series, but books and films are not like a TV show, because a TV show, in the old days, you knew there'd be another one next week.
Yes.
Now, you just press next episode on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But books aren't like that.
No, the TV show, the job of the writer, apart, on top of entertaining the audience, is to...
Repeat audience.
Is to make that viewer need to keep watching.
Yeah.
And the promise, because when you write a story and you offer it to someone to consume, you're telling them you're promising them something, which is that they are going to be satisfied by what you're giving them. And the promise when you watch a TV show, especially the pilot, it's the first of a two-parter, is I get to watch the second part.
Yeah.
The promise when you read a book as a reader is I get to read a story.
And there's no guarantee there'll be a second book.
Yeah, if you get stopped in the middle and told that's all, folks, come back not next week but in 6 months when you've read a million other books.
You haven't got a guarantee that book will ever come out. You just don't. You might want it to. And the thing is, even if you're coming in late, so even if those books, a whole series is out, you get to the end of that book, you've put quite a lot of time and investment into getting through it.
More than an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the point, yeah.
So then you're like, well, what if I read the second book
and it does the same thing?
Then it's just, I'm then having to pay money and hours of my life. Will I ever find out the end of this story? Will this ever be told? Whereas, for instance, Mermaid's Curse, that came out a couple of years ago, and because of so many other things that we've been doing, I have book 3 in process, but not finished. If Mermaid's Curse had ended on a cliffhanger, like, will Lily save the mermaids? Come back next book.
Then
those people would be like, okay.
Yeah.
That I'll never find out then. Whereas now it's like, I'm saying, I am going to write book 3, I'm going to finish it, but not yet. And it's fine.
Yeah. Dear God, if you're listening and you can find another 40 hours a day to give us,
oh God,
then we'll finish some books.
Oh my God, I could use 40 extra hours a day at the minute. Anyway, that's the second point. So yeah, that's our video about why you shouldn't end first segments of TV. Of TV. It's fine. First segments of.
I would even say if you are writing television, you're probably used to having conversations like this. Don't need to watch us necessarily, but the even then, there's a price if every episode is.
Yeah, you can't do it every time.
No, because you've got to wrap things up.
Books and films, don't end them on cliffhangers. Thank you very much for watching. If you could like this video and subscribe to our channel, we can keep bringing you the writing advice and you can help us grow. Comment down below if you've got any examples of cliffhanger endings that do really work for you in books and films, because if we're wrong, we always like to see examples of why we're wrong.
This is one of the rare occasions where I'm going to say that it's not really that we're wrong. That it's not about us being wrong. It's not us who have created this rule. It is a rule for a reason, and everybody tends to agree with it.
Well, I'm saying, if you don't agree, come and tell us, because we'd like to know. And if you're a YouTuber as well, and you have a channel where you talk about stories in any form, books, TV, film reviews, anything you do, we'll link your channel on ours as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back again soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.